with both of us?
I don't know. At least we can communicate via text.
Oh my God. I mean, you're busy. You got a whole other life going on that people don't know about. We're going to talk about that tonight. Also, because you helped me immensely.
Yeah.
No question about it. But you are so knowledgeable when it comes to fishing. And I mean, people are lining up already. We've got Tyler Tanaka up there. He's excited. Jeff Yeomans. Jeff is excited.
Yeah.
And guess who else is excited?
Who's that?
Me.
There you go. I'm excited.
Because last year we did this show.
Yeah.
5 things I learned in the 2022 season. Man, that had thousands of views. Thousands and thousands and thousands. So I'm excited about it again tonight.
I'm ready to go. We are on.
Well,
hey,
we absolutely are on.
Just check. I mean, like you said,
you're the one had to get an ad in there so I make a little money.
Yeah, you're the one in charge of the electronics, and you're bound to screw something up.
Absolutely, yeah. Thank you. 100%.
Yeah.
Hey, hit that like button if you don't mind. We'd really appreciate that. Subscribe to the Friedman Adventurers channel. That's always great. And right now, if you see the like button or the thumbs up button, as it's called, right next to it is a share button. You can share this right now with a friend and have them tune in and watch Brian. And of course, this is all going to be archived in a very short time. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Brian's show will be on Apple Podcasts and Spotify tomorrow in about the afternoon hours. If you want to listen to it that way, you're well able to do that. All right. The 5 things that you learned this year. Before we get to it, you've got like some bait for some people out there, right? Go ahead. What is it? What are we going to do? What's your vocation in life?
Well, Phil,
I
because
do.
I helped you.
Help is not the word.
I like to call myself a professional Medicare benefits advisor.
Yes.
And so Medicare. So that would mean people 65 and older.
That's me.
That's you.
Unfortunately.
And I essentially like to run them through. I call it the Medicare Benefits Assessment and Expense Management Plan. And I help them navigate their way through that. And I've been very fortunate to be able to help a lot of the Friedman Adventures family.
Oh, man, I hear it all the time.
People are reaching out to me, and I very much appreciate you guys very much. But in doing this, best way to get a hold of me, by the way, would be my website, www.mhlis.com. But something I've talked to you over dinner about, and kind of rolling this one out. But
thank you for a lovely dinner, by the way, upstairs there.
Yeah,
that was good.
Always a good time. But I've been doing a lot, getting a lot of information out via social media. And then I tried something this year. I kind of took a page. I was inspired by our mutual friend, Jeff Yeomans, who did his casting.
He's listening right now. Jeff, we love you.
Jeff. And I kind of went, there was a particular subject that a lot of people wanted to know about, this whole vertical jigging. People are getting into it and buying all the equipment. And, my biggest thing, you've always heard me say it on your show, confidence, building people's confidence.
Exactly.
So one of the areas that I wanted to show people was how to fight fish on them, because it's a little bit different than what we're used to. So I did a private kind of a session. I limited to 8 people, and the reason why I did it for 8 is because it's so detailed. I'd be doing you a disservice if I had 20 people there.
Right.
I couldn't really focus on it, but we had a very good turnout, and people learned an awful lot. And so it kind of got the wheels turning in my head. So I said, I get a lot of private messages on Facebook. I get on Instagram every day of people wanting to know about tackle and rigging, or how my trip was, or hey Brian, what the heck is Medicare? Not really sure. I'd love to help you. I appreciate that too.
Me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I kind of came up with today, obviously being the cigar aficionado, I was having my cigar before I came to the show here at the lounge, and I said, this would be kind of cool if I want to reach more fishermen. I want to help people. And so for anybody, the Friedman Adventures family, if any of them refers me to a new client for Medicare, I will open it up to them. I will lunch on me within a 30-mile radius of the San Gabriel Valley. Lunch on me. And then I will also give them an hour's worth of breaking what's left of my brain anyway, if they want to learn tackle. They want to talk about knots. They want to talk about rigging. They want to talk about, hey, this is, we lost a bunch of fish this year fishing on such and such sport boat.
Yeah.
How do we prevent that? How do we minimize that? Well, I'm game. So within the 30 miles, you get lunch on me, and you get information Non-biased, as you know, I'm not beholden to any companies or anything like that. I just want to make sure that people go out and have a great time out on the water.
I love it. And hey, I've already taken him up on this because Greg Bates, I
Yeah.
referred him to Greg Bates, and Greg's like, hey, thank you, man. I can't
Yeah.
wait. I got dinner out of the deal,
Yeah,
man. I'll
see,
tell you.
there you go.
Worked great.
There you go.
And I get to pick Brian's.
Yeah, but I'm serious about this. So you guys can find me on my website or look me up on Instagram. I'm the Cigar Aficionado, AFISHINADO. And you hit me up. But yeah, here we go.
Fantastic. Well, let's get into it. Before we do, let me read a couple of comments that we have up there. We'll catch up. And I've got this notebook here, so I don't have to go anywhere in case.
I've got modernized now. I'm using a tablet.
Oh my God, we're getting out of control here. That's for sure. Hey, Mitchell Halibut Man says this is going to be a good one. Thanks, Phil. Thank you, Brian. I know it's going to be. Mitchell, thanks for being here, my friend. David Rosenthal says, good evening. David, I ran a nice photo of you with a lobster on the morning briefing today, man. Good job. Thanks for being here. Daniel says, let's go. Jeff Yeoman says, good evening. Daniel Lightfoot says, good evening. Fellas, Neil says, talk about Medicare, and I'm out. I have heard enough of this, that. Oh, well, just a little bit, Niels. We all have to make a living here. Come on. You know, the guy's giving us all this time, so give him a break. All right, Jackson Pulvita, good evening. Phil and Brian, great show that you gave with James and Mike at Tackle Day on Saturday. Yeah, I heard it was great.
I was there.
Yeah.
It was
How
a lot
was
of fun.
that? Was it well attended?
A lot of fun. Looked like it was well attended.
Yeah.
And the booth was hopping, and got a chance to get up on stage and talk with the guys at West Coast Jiggers in kind of a collaborative effort.
Yeah.
And share our knowledge of jigging, vertical jigging for bluefin tuna.
Yeah.
Good time.
All right, perfect. And finally, Chris says, stoked for this, and I don't have to watch this crappy football game tonight. We're bailing them out. I don't even know who's playing, Chris, but yeah, we've got it. All right, here we go. How are we going to do this? From the number one most important thing?
We can do that.
No, I mean, or work from 5
we're just,
to 1.
I've got it kind of listed out, and, we had a lot of fun with this one last year.
Oh, my God, I know.
We were like, and then we were given a time frame. We had a deadline because there wasn't a boat leaving that night. So
right.
We were hoping that we would get through it, and I'm sure that we'll get through it.
Yeah, I mean, I think we were like an hour and a half into the show, and on number 2.
Here we go. So
when Brian, after he gives, please, he's more than willing to take your questions, and we'll make sure that we answer everybody here this evening.
Yeah.
All right. What's one of the things that you learned this year?
All right. There's always that conversation that comes up on the forums about drag pressure.
Yes.
And you'll have, I fish X amount of drag, and one of the things I learned this year was I wrote here, landing any fish efficiently requires a combination of both drag pressure and technique. You can't just have one.
That's true.
Right? So, people will say, well, I like to get them with, 30 pounds of drag, and we get all kind of, we start throwing out big numbers here and there. And the reality of it is that drag is one part of it, and you've got to have the technique to back that up. And if you have both, well, then now your ability to fight this fish, the efficiency has increased.
Yeah.
So you and I did that one show, and I got to say it got us an awful lot of attention when we were standing on the back of the deck of the Freedom talking about drag pressure. We had a great time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that in my head too since you did that. I've kept it now on the Independence. I finished off a couple of bluefin, and using that technique, man. Yeah. I never even broke a sweat. Yeah. Well, other guys are like, they got that big bend in their rod.
Yeah. So one of the things I started to use a lot in I said this at that one workshop that I did on fighting fish with the jigging rods. I said there's the effect of drag versus effective drag. So kind of, you talk about, I fished 35 pounds of drag. Well, you go back onto that video, we'll kind of see, how to set your drags with a spring scale. You remember we went slow and then we went fast and so on and so forth. But one of the things that we've heard from the Royal Polaris days, they talk about stupid tight. I don't know who came up with that. I know Rollo used to say that, and I know Frank says that. So it might be Frank, obviously with his Frank isms.
Yeah.
But I have one. They're stupid tight. And I'm going to add to that. I said this at that workshop. There's macho tight.
Yes.
Then there's effective, and then there's too light.
Yeah.
And
whoa, I like all those little categories.
Yeah. And the macho, the stupid tight, that one there, you kind of know it almost immediately. You get bit, the fish runs, and pow, stuff starts to break.
Yeah.
But the macho tight, that's the one that, on the forums and on social media, this is where I like to hit fish at right from the word go.
Yeah.
I'll tell you one of the things that I saw this year quite a bit. I've said this to Rambo, the boat that I chartered on the Cortez, and I just make light of it. Of course, I say, God, I wish all the fish were the same size. But we're encountering this mixed grade.
God, that makes it so much more. Yes.
Right.
Yeah. 100%.
So now you could potentially, Phil, standing next to me, hook a 150-pounder, and here I come with my 30-pounder. And my 30-pounder on my 100-pound gear in the dark probably couldn't pull off the drag that I'm fishing on there. But your 150 can. But if you've got macho tight into your head, driven that you got to get them at this X amount, 40 pounds, full tilt boogie, let's go.
Which when I was a kid was very common. Like button down and take your freaking pliers and hit that drag. And
Well, guess what happens now?
Yeah, right.
Your fish bulldogs straight up and down underneath the boat, right? Be it 300 feet, 400 feet, but he stays down there and he's wreaking havoc. You're following that thing left and right, and all the while it's staying right underneath the boat.
Yeah.
My 30-pounder comes along and gets really squirrely, and now because your fish is underneath the boat, mine's going completely crazy. We could end up being a liability to each other now, can't we? So I figure that if you try to go macho tight on them, one of the things that I started to do was I back off on my drags now. I started to let them go. Let them run.
Yeah.
And then, when they're out there, I'm not telling you I don't go. Again, that's not stupid tight and that's not macho tight either. It's just effective drag.
Which is what you want.
So I'll let them go. And then that way it gives me plenty of time to figure out how I'm going to get them back in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Whereas,
makes sense.
Yeah. I learned this on my May trip. We had fish that, that 60 to 90 pound grade biting full speed.
Yeah.
And every one of my guys were losing fish. They weren't, quick of foot, if you will. So me moving up and down that rail was really difficult, and they were a little slow, some of them, and there was also a language barrier there as well. Some of them were older, and their English wasn't as good, so the crew would say step to the left, right. But I said, you know what? I had my reel set at 30, stupid me, and that fish, it was just bulldogging the entire time. Yeah, right at the boat. And I knew it. If I get into this corner here in the stern, I'm in trouble.
Yeah.
These guys. So I backed off, let him go. And so now, if whatever he needs to do, he's going to settle down, certainly when he's out there.
Yeah.
And now I can start to work him back in, and they come in a much more civilized fashion. And I don't run the risk of cutting.
I like that.
Yeah. The risk of them cutting me off isn't as significant, and I won't cut them off as much.
There you go. Yeah.
So it's not really, a matter of I could sit here and tell you that we can, we'll fish overpower them. I mean, you're not overpowering them. The concept of time has been a very, it's like kind of this year has been a thing.
Yeah.
I got a 150-pounder in less than 10 minutes.
Yes.
They're big fish. And no matter what you do, some of them take time. And I don't know if you're really going to be able to overwhelm them with your brute strength.
Right.
But there are cases where they don't put up much of a fight, but then
mostly at night, right?
Yeah.
Would you say?
But then we get into the fall season here, that fall big fish, then something changes in them.
Yeah.
You notice they're long. I kind of saw this 2 trips ago. My September trip, you kind of look at them, they look different from that summer fish.
Yeah.
They were longer, the tails were a little bigger.
Yeah.
They put up a fight.
My God, we saw that on the Independent. You asked me.
Yeah.
Were your fish, did you think that the fish were fighting?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. 35 and 40-pound yellowfin they were pulling.
Guys, but
dang,
like a half hour plus on some of those fish.
So that's the one thing that I learned this year. You don't have to go, macho tight, just because the forums say it. Does not mean it's necessarily the most efficient way anyway. Not to say that, a lot of the drag, again, drag and technique
There
come
you go.
into play
That's
here,
so important.
right? So
Yeah.
if you can do both, then you're way ahead. But you can't depend on just one. You may have the technique, but if your drag is not right, whether it be too light or too much, well, then now you're placing yourself at a major disadvantage, and vice versa. If you have good drag, but you don't have the technique, then it becomes a problem.
Yeah, it can almost like if you have that efficient drag and you're not pulling on the fish the way you should be, you go back to your video and see, because you're going to hurt yourself. You're going to tire yourself out.
Well, that video too wasn't necessarily, it wasn't a how-to, and I think I've said this several times on that video. I said, this is not a how-to, this is really just an FYI.
Yeah.
That way you kind of understand the effective drag versus effective drag.
Yes.
Right? And so that video, it showed a lot of that. I got a lot of private messages from captains back east based on that podcast.
I believe it.
You know, so it's really just a few things to keep in mind out there. But you have to be flexible and you have to adapt out there. And that's thing one that I learned this year.
That is a good one. You know, it hit me right between the eyes in the stern of the Friedman when you said, pull as hard as you can. I have a big bend in the rod. And I'm pulling. And then you said, point the rod and just back up. I'm like, oh my God.
Yeah, the big difference. Yeah.
Boom.
And then, you saw the drag pressure. We did it with that scale, right?
Yes.
And you saw the difference.
Yeah.
So there you go. I'll let your viewers watch that video, and they're, I'm not saying, again, there's no wrong, there's no right in this. I use the word efficient. There's just some ways that might be a little bit more efficient. I'm getting there. I'm, at the old age of 42.
That's lucky guy, young kid.
Yeah, I do. I like to save myself from a lot of the bodily stress.
Yeah, me too.
Right.
Yeah, exactly, man. There's a better way to do things. Plus, I'm all about learning new stuff. You need to learn. And you just mentioned something else that's super important on sport fishing boats. You said observe, adapt.
Right.
Watch what's going on, right? And then adapt to that.
Yeah, I'm always paying attention. I had a trip earlier this year. Eric Sheets of Cal's.
Who just came on and said hello.
Oh, there you go.
Eric, that means a lot to me. Eric, we got to get you and Cal on here.
I watched on that trip that Eric was on. I just started paying attention to what was going on. I wasn't getting bit on a particular style of jig that I had, but I said, it's good. This is the one. I always have this one tied on. But I noticed that the short biters anyway, the guys that got bit and would miss them, they were all getting bit on shorter, smaller profile jigs.
Yeah.
So as soon as I picked up on that, I changed out my jig and away it went. And I started getting bit. That was good. I watched Eric. He got the jackpot on that trip.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, and he was fishing he had a 300-gram jig. So this wasn't a matter of weight, but his jig was definitely smaller in profile.
Yes.
So then I switched to the West Coast Jiggers HD jig, the hot dog jig. There's 400 different names for that thing. Everybody's got a nickname for it. But I switched to that. It's a smaller profile, and I got bit. Guys switched to the SK jig. Got bit.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So they didn't that night. They didn't that trip. They didn't want anything that was crazy long, and I just paid attention to what was going on.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you just have to keep your head in the game. Hey, speaking of James Cacao, he says good evening.
Hey, there you go.
James,
hey, James
is here. James, you need to get back in here one of these days, real soon. Walter says, "Hey guys, great to see both of you on the show." Walter, thanks for being here. It means a lot to both of us. Andrew H, is this live? Here, let me see. Let me check your pulse. Yeah, he's alive.
I'm here.
Yeah, he's good. Yeah, it's live, Andrew. Good evening, gentlemen, says Isaac, Yellowtail 69 Wasabi. That will work on bluefin, not your tuna. Always adjust to your situation. Yes, right? I think
the gist of it is to adjust, right?
Sharks like loose drags. Yeah. All right, and Isaac says, celebrating the Marine Corps' birthday tonight. Happy birthday, U.S. Marines, man, right?
Yep, happy
Protecting
birthday.
our country.
Absolutely.
We love it. Andrew H., pros and cons with gloves.
I guess, you can wear them. I personally, at nighttime for jigging, I wear one, kind of got that Michael Jackson deal going. I got one on. But I like them to be fingerless. Fishing is all about feel, right? And I know that, some of the guys, they're afraid of a hard cast, the spectra looping around and possibly cutting their thumbs off. I mean, obviously, that is certainly a concern. I don't necessarily think about that. But I'm careful when I cast. I'm more concerned about looking behind me, right? It's, you're not going to miss the water.
Yeah.
I'm more concerned about that. But I don't, some of the guys that come even on our trip, they use that flex tape and they cover up all their fingertips, and you lose that feel. That bluefin, when they bite the jig, maybe at nighttime it's sinking, and it just stops. Well, that's a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
But then sometimes it's sinking, and they almost like take off with it like it's like a fly line bait. All of a sudden, they go.
Yeah.
And sometimes, or in the daytime, it's a tick sometimes. Fly lining, that's a feel thing. That is, yeah. And so by having a lot of things all over your hands, I understand it. Yeah, you just lose the feel. And then, it kind of, you might even become a liability to not only yourself. You may not get bit because you don't know what's going on, but you become a liability to others because, as I've said in a lot of my fly line workshops that I do for the fishing clubs and such, current does a really good job of pretending to be your sardine.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah,
so,
absolutely.
Yeah, you got to be able to feel. Fishing is a feel thing, and I don't know how else to say that. And people can probably, come up with something nasty. Or
I can do that.
Yeah,
I'll come up with a double entendre by the end of this show. Let me tell you.
Yeah, but that's it. Pros, obviously, I wear it for the jigging purposes because I'm on the handle all the time, so it does help. But live bait fishing, no, I don't wear gloves. But if you wanted to, wear those fingerless ones, those racing gloves.
Yeah.
I think was what they call that.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, but I know like Gill makes those, and so those will work.
All right, perfect. Hey, hit that like button, everybody. There's a ton of people tuning in tonight. We deeply appreciate that, my friend. Don Salveson says, thanks for having Brian on the show. He has so much to share. You're not kidding, Don. Best advice I take from him is that you learn from others. Fighting the battle starts between the ears. Is that one of your little sayings? Or?
No, that's Don.
Don, I like that. That's a good one, Don.
Don is, I don't know if you know Don.
I may and may not recognize the name.
Well, you may not know the name or you may not know the man, but he is around the industry. He walks around the CCA, all the events, and takes pictures and posts them. Wonderful man, and even better photographer. That shot that you have of me with pulling that's him.
Oh, okay,
and
cool.
He is, I know he's retired now, and I think the photography has been a lifelong passion of his. And I've seen some of his work, but I mean, not work. He's on vacation and he posts up really nice pictures, and that's what he's trying to do.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Don, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Anthony says he's going on the Monte Carlo Monday. He can't wait. Best of luck to you, Anthony. Have a great trip. Emmanuel Navedo is watching from Florida.
Hey.
Just wanted to send his very, very best. Always learning something new on this channel, Emmanuel. Thank you so much. Brian is right at the top of the knowledge tree.
I don't know about that.
Well, you passed me $20 to say that
there
upstairs at dinner.
Yep, it worked.
It's true. Nolan Oshiro, what did Brian do in the fishing industry before your Medicare job?
I was.
Good question.
Yeah, I was in sales, marketing, as well as product development in the fishing tackle industry. I worked for. I was doing that for Shimano, Okuma, and a couple of other different brands. But I was around when we first created the first ever 300 size bait caster in the Corrado. And
that's amazing.
At that time, I mean, it was
a big deal.
It was a big deal.
Yeah.
But I know that the powers that be, they did, it was kind of mixed emotions, if you will.
Yeah.
But it was our group that really was pushing for that size of a bait caster, and now it's common.
Yeah.
When I worked for Okuma, is on helping them with helped with the product development side of things, as well as gathering of information, interviewing people, and getting all that information for the Makaira SEA reels. Have the trophy to prove that I have my work too.
I believe you without the trophy.
So that's what I did. I was in sales, marketing, and some product development in the fishing tackle industry for 20 some years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're only 40, so geez, half your life.
Half my life was in it. And I'm happy doing what I do now. I will tell you what I do miss are the people.
Yeah.
It becomes a big family, and people, you're used to seeing the same people, over and over again. And now I get to see them a couple times a year when we're doing events and things like that. But being able to now give back to the community and provide information and doing things like workshops and so on and so forth. It's getting me back not into the industry, which I don't want,
Right.
but it's allowing me to
You're a smart
reconnect.
man.
It's allowing me to reconnect with friends and make new ones.
Right.
That's what I absolutely love.
I mean, every time you do like a seminar, I went to one of your cigar.
Yeah.
We met all kinds of great people. It was really, really fun.
Yep.
So
we have a lot of fun.
good stuff. Andrew says he's going to Japan.
Uh-huh.
He wants to know, are there any jig companies he should keep an eye out for? Do you know of any jig companies or anything he should buy? I hear it's like going into a candy store.
Boy, sometimes these days, a lot of those jigs are available. They're starting to become available here now.
Yeah.
Before, you had that Nature Boy stuff that was kind of strictly over there. You'd have to buy the jigs from Japan and have it shipped over here. There is one thing that you can take a look at that if you follow the guys, my friends from West Coast Jiggers, they are applying there's this technique in Japan that they use called ebbing. I'm not going to go in depth into it because I don't know much about it.
Yeah.
All I know is that those guys, they're taking that and applying it to what we do out here, and kind of making sure that the tackle is up to snuff.
Yeah.
It's kind of I'm sorry, James, but I think it's like it's a drop shot teaser kind of method. But when that James on that, he had one trip, the yellowfin were maybe not biting full speed, but he dropped that thing down and he got like 3 or 4 on it.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So look, that's something you can kind of take a look at if you go to Japan. Maybe inquire on that. It could become a thing here, something that's very successful. Obviously, those guys from West Coast Jiggers, they are really getting behind it and doing their research on it to make sure that we can apply it out here and do so effectively and efficiently.
There you go. And something's rolling around in my brain, and it's probably absolutely wrong, that the ebbing has something to do with the shrimp-like looking. Because ebbing, that's the word in Japanese for shrimp.
There you go. So, I didn't know that.
Yeah. I mean, so I can't remember who told me that, but I don't even know if it's correct. But that's like rattling around in my small brain right now. Good stuff. All right, Andrew, there you go. Eric says, Phil, you got to go on one of Brian's charters. I'm with Brian on the Cortez in August. Eric, I would love to come out and shoot a video on one of your trips.
Yeah, we could do that.
All about that. Yeah, that would be fun.
Can you handle us?
Oh.
Eric,
can you handle me?
Yeah, this is true. Eric was not only a good sport, but he dished it out too. I was like, that's a whole new level of respect I had for him.
Eric, I'm in, man. Let's rock and roll.
And we smoked a lot of cigars on that trip, he and I, and had a lot of conversations. I've known Cal and Nancy for a long time. This was a really good opportunity, and not to get all sentimental, Eric, but it was really good to really get to know you really well. Yeah. Get to know you really well and share the rail with you.
That's great.
Burning cigars and
that's what it's all about, right?
We had a great time.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah.
Let's do it, Eric. I need to get those dates from you so I don't book something.
Okay.
If we're going to do it, that would be absolutely wonderful. Yep. Anthony Guerrero wants to know, what's your biggest fish?
I got a 291 on the Royal Star, and I was on a fly line sardine.
Ooh.
And
daytime fish?
Yeah.
Yeah, obviously.
Yeah.
And how long did it take you to get? How long were you on that fish?
I'm going to say on a
45
30
minutes.
size reel with a 6.465 double XH. I think that was like a 45, 50-minute fish.
Well, I predicted 45 minutes. I don't know if you heard me.
Like that,
which is extraordinary.
Yeah, because we were we were in sharky waters, and they fought really hard, and that was I think I still remember this, that on a Tiagra 30, and I had 100-pound hollow on the reel, and I had a 130-pound Momoy wind-on leader. Damn, I still remember it.
That's awesome. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
And where were you guys fishing on that trip?
We were fishing that Clarion buffer zone.
Oh, okay. So you had those brown sharks all over you.
Lots of them.
Yeah, they're nasty.
Yeah.
Yeah, they really are.
Lots
I thought, maybe it was a bluefin or something out on Tanner Cortez.
Lots of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They are nasty. There you go, Anthony. Yeah. Fish with Ish. How do you like the Tranx 400 for the tuna on the light side? By the way, just a time check for you. we're 30 minutes into the show. We've done one.
We've done one. Okay.
We're going to be here till midnight.
Okay, so maybe we answer this one and we're going to move along.
I don't know. I mean, these people are happy to hear that you're going to be here till midnight.
And no problem with
Floor
the
might,
yeah.
Floor and Zane maybe not, but
you fish it within its capabilities and you don't have a problem. You cast that thing in because you have, if you have like 400 yards of 30-pound braid on there and you have a top shot of 50, well, now that thing is not, that wasn't designed for it.
Yeah.
I'd say that if it's fish that are sub 40 pounds, you should be okay.
Okay.
But I think that you're going to have a little bit more power using a star drag or a lever drag, preferably a 2-speed. That way you're not on them for a while. I mean, the last trip I was guilty of that. Those mean yellowfin.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I hooked one on my bass rod, 9-foot rod with a little small star drag reel. That thing took me forever to bring up.
Yeah.
I'm like,
do you have a theory on why they are mean in one part of the year and not mean and not?
No idea.
Me either.
Just, when I got back to the dock, I told Rambo, and he goes, "Yeah, we noticed that the last couple of trips. They're just mean." I said, "I have no idea."
It's pretty crazy.
So that was it. I didn't want to do that again. I was like 25 minutes there. I was just like, dang.
Yeah, heck yeah. We still got to catch up with a few here if you don't mind, Brian. Chet Young, who's a great guy. I don't know if you know Chet. He's a super heck of a guy. Aloha from Honolulu. Brian, can you do Medicare Advantage advice for Hawaii? Now is the season for enrollment changes.
Unfortunately, I cannot.
Okay.
It's all, I do it, everything here is in California.
Gotcha.
Yeah, sorry about that.
Thanks for asking, Chet, for sure. Ken Trenholm is another fantastic guy. Spent a lot of great time with him here recently. Hello, Friedman Adventures family. More great knowledge and other great guests. Thanks, Phil, for all you're doing. Hit the like button. Yeah. Ken, you're absolutely right. We'll be in touch here in the very near future. Ken, always great to hear from you. Hopefully you'll make it to our Christmas party. I just popped that on Brian, so excuse me, he's got to check his dates, but hopefully he'll be at the Christmas party December the 2nd. Also, I hope you don't mind me mentioning that this Saturday, All Souls Cemetery, Eddie Leland's memorial from 4 in the afternoon till 8. You got to meet Eddie.
Yes.
Yeah. How'd that go?
It was like we known each other for a long time when I talked to him.
Yeah.
I met him at one of your lunches. I think you did at one. I forgot the name of the restaurant.
Oh, it was Schulb's
there
in
you
Long
go.
Beach,
There
right?
you go.
With Jason, Chef Jason from the Amigo now.
Yeah. So we had a couple conversations over the phone as well, and I just started.
Oh, that's right. You were helping him out.
Yep.
I remember that. Yeah. Good stuff. So that'll be Saturday, everybody. All right, Emmanuel, what date in August? I'm definitely going back to Cali next year. He wants to know about your trip. Do you have room on it? Or?
Our trips are typically private charters. Yeah, it's just me and a group of my good friends that have been fishing together. Some of us for a very long time. But there's openings. Where we have cancellations and such. And,
do you know the date offhand or no? Or
no, not.
Should he contact you if you needed to get it?
If he says, "Hey, Brian, I'd like to be on a standby or something like that," then absolutely.
Yeah, perfect, Emmanuel. We'll be putting out some dates. We have our 8-day trip on the Independence. We have that etched in concrete. That is going to be the 18th of November through the 26th of November, and Thanksgiving is the 28th. In case you're thinking it's going to run into that. All right, let's see. Live free, die free. Evening, Brian, and everyone else. Really good stuff. And Anthony says, hit the like button. All right. Número dos, por favor. Number two.
All right, here we go. So, circle hooks. We're using circle hooks, and we're still getting bit off.
Yeah, what's up with that? Yeah.
Right, okay. So, I have on here, anglers still getting bit off on circle hooks. What gives and how to remedy it.
Yeah.
This
is going to be good.
Yeah. What gives? All right. So when we're talking, let's just say use the most common outfit would be a 40-pound setup, right? And the way that this bluefin tuna, for the bluefin tuna, you're having to really finesse them or trick them to bite. And with that, we are using very smaller circle hooks on them.
That's right. Even on number 4.
Yeah, take a look at some of the sardines that come out, and yet you're having a fish a small circle hook on them just to get a bite.
Right.
So I have found that, or not found, but the small circle hooks, the real thin wire ones, whether it be a Mustad 39942 BLN or an owner Mutu, a regular Mutu, they're small, they're thin, and they're real prickly. They have that real sharp point to them, And what happens is that when you get bit on them, it's the excitement, right? The fish takes off, and then you push the reel in the strike, and you start biting them, and then they chew you off. Well, what's happening is that you put the brakes on that quick on them. That little prickly point, it doesn't have enough time or a chance to come and get them in the corner of the mouth. It will just catch wherever it comes into contact with. So it's kind of a control thing. You have to discipline or be disciplined, and you don't go full tilt.
You got to be thinking of this ahead of time.
Yeah. So when you get bit, that lever drag. If you're using a lever drag anyway, hey, use that thing wisely. Ramp up slow to where your strike or pre-strike, if you will, if you're setting your reels. That's for another show, by the way, the pre-strike thing.
Yeah.
But if you're
good,
we're just setting up,
there's going to be another show.
We ramp up nice and slow. I mean, they're already taken off. Okay, so ramp up slow, and it gives it time anyway to. I'm not saying this is guaranteed. Nothing in life is guaranteed, but it does kind of reduce that kind of dart effect, throwing of a dart, right?
Yeah.
It just doesn't have that chance to. Or I'm sorry, I shouldn't say it doesn't have, but you reduce that chance of it just sticking anywhere but the corner of the mouth.
Yes. So the theory, and just in case there's somebody out there, they're like, wait a minute, what? Yeah. The theory of a circle hook is that it's going to lodge in the perfect position,
That's
right?
Correct. Right in the corner of the mouth, in the limit, and reduces the chance of them chewing through the line and such. But if you get them deep,
the line's in their mouth.
Here we go.
And they're chewing on it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Wow, that's an important tip.
Yeah. And then the question comes up, well, what if I have a star drag? Am I at a disadvantage? No. So a lot of times, get bit, and which I will just put the reel in gear on the star drag and let that fish pull the line. And what you'll see me do sometimes when I get bit, I will actually thumb the spool a little bit harder and harder and harder, and then I'll put the star drag or flip the switch on the star drag, and away we go. Just to kind of mimic the effect that the lever drag has.
Right.
And I have to say, I haven't had that issue at all it happened once to me in the last couple of years getting chewed, but that's because I was quick to that. That was a tough trip, and I got bit and super excited. And
wow, this is a great tip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So no need to get excited. I mean, obviously, get excited, but don't excite the lever on your reel, right? Yeah. How about that? Just nice and slow ramp up. And for the most part, you will get them in a corner of the mouth. I was fishing last trip a hook by I think one of your sponsors, Blacktail.
Yeah.
I fished the number 6 on 25.
This guy?
There you go. I fished that number 6 circle hook, and you would think I says, you know what, this is that prime candidate here. This thing is small and prickly and thin and sharp.
Yeah.
It's gonna get, but I on a star drag getting bit, and then kind of just put the thumb on a little bit and hit the fun switch, and then the fish takes off, and every one of the fish that I had right in the corner of the mouth on that number 6.
Dude, you're talking about a couple years, and only one time you've lost a fish
from the chew off on a circle hook on bait. Yeah.
That sounds like a high percentage of success to me.
And I'm not kidding you, because I still remember the rig I caught that tuna with. You see that?
Yeah.
But that's something to definitely keep in mind. I put this post up I think a couple of years ago on my Instagram, and it got a lot of attention. Some guys even in the industry that said, we've been guilty of going full tilt right from the get-go.
Because you get excited. Right.
So I've seen it happening a lot because of the circle hook, the small circle hooks that we have to use. So maybe moving forward, or if you're not done this year yet, they're biting.
Oh my God, they're biting. El Patron's coming in here in just a couple more hours. He's got limits of bluefin tuna.
There you go.
Yeah.
But definitely something to keep in mind.
Yeah, that sounds good. Does the way that you hook your bait facilitate hooking the fish in the corner? If you back hook it as opposed to belly hook it?
Yeah, I haven't found that to have any effect on how you hook them.
Yeah,
not at all. I mean, that's for another topic too.
Yeah, right.
We could have another show here. But
you mean how to hook your bait?
How to hook bait.
Actually, we got to do that with bait and go down there and do that. Absolutely, Brian.
Yeah, but
now we're gonna have a busy winter time.
Oh my, it's gonna be an awful lot of fun. We'll be fly lining baits in the dock here in our winter coat.
I love it, man. Let me catch up because just because I have to do that, I'm not going to run over there. Steve Bermuda says, speaking of finger tape, This one doesn't absorb water, will last the whole day, and will allow your skin to breathe and bend if you put it on dry skin. Transfor medical tape, clear plastic. You aware of that?
No, I'm not, but
we learned something new,
rock
right?
on.
Thank you, Steve. You know, Steve, you come up with a lot of goofy ideas. That might be a good one for a change. You better take a screenshot of that, Steve. That might be one of your best ideas. All right, Anthony, what type of knots is the best knots for fishing?
The one that you tie the
best.
The best.
Yeah.
You go this weekend or this past weekend at the Tackle Days. James and Mike and myself, their booth was right next to Iser's booth with the line testing machine. You know what? Not always wins, right?
Yeah.
The double San Diego Jam, but if you maybe you do it in maybe have categories. You say actual, maybe note to Iser. Maybe you have a category that says knots that you would actually fish, right? Because a double San Diego with 100-pound fly line, it's a monster. It's a huge hook, right? Oh, sorry, it's a huge knot. Yes, strong it is, but I think that in fishing, one of the things that we in our presentation anyway. You want something stealthy, and at the same time, you want it to be strong. Somebody could take the knot, like I tie a trilene knot. I love that knot. That's it for me as far as bait fishing is concerned. And I will put it up on a line machine, on the line tester, and it'll go way higher than 100%.
Really?
But then somebody come up with a double San Diego and say, "See, I went 10 pounds heavier than your knot." Yeah, but look at the size of my little tiny trilene knot versus the size of your. I mean, I'm exaggerating on size here.
Yeah.
But I mean,
and why is that important?
As far as it getting bit.
Yeah, because
you got a lot of
natural.
Yeah, you got all that. I mean, now you may not have the hardware of crimps and such, but you just have this great big knot.
Yeah.
I mean, I even know I read Brandon Hayward's book years ago, and he interviewed Danny Wade about surface iron fishing, and he was adamant about him tying a single San Diego to his surface iron because to tie a double, he actually felt that there might be a slight enough change that he is not confident. Now, that doesn't mean it doesn't work, but he is not confident in that
confidence
double.
is important.
Yeah. So he ties a single San Diego. So I just, when you're presenting, when you're fishing, I always err on the side of finesse because no matter what, they'll bite it. Right, you can go the power route all day long, but if they're not going to bite it, then I guess you don't have anything to worry about.
Yeah.
So when that trilene knot that I tie, I mean, there's a number of all these knots these days. I mean, gosh, I can't even name a Springer knot. There's another one that starts with an S. They're all good.
Yeah.
Tie what you like, but I will say, if the diameter, so a lot of us are fishing the ringed hooks now.
Yeah.
And one of the things, this was like back in the 90s that we learned. When like the ringed hooks just started to really catch on. One of the things we learned about that is that if your line diameter is thicker than the ring on that hook, it highly advisable to tie a knot that has 2 strands of line that go on, because that one, if you tied a single strand of line that goes through that ring, it actually can cut through your line in an extended battle.
Yeah.
We learned this we saw that we heard about it and we knew about it, and then we actually saw it happening on a 10-day trip at Alejos many years ago. Coming off. So kind of a little tip there. That's why you see all the Springer knots and the trilene knots. They all have 2 strands of line going over that. It kind of cushions that effect.
Something just came into my head here. When I was on the Independence, some guy, he has a knot named after him. It's a very, I can't remember. And he was going to send me hats and everything else. If you're watching tonight, make sure you send that email one more time again. I'm going to go searching for it. Thanks to you, and thanks for the question on that. By the way, Jeff Yeoman says, do a seminar on the different ways to hook a bait. I think that is so important. I get that all the time.
Yeah.
How do you back hook a bait? How do you belly hook a bait? Why do you know hook a bait? All that stuff. Yeah. You're a pro at that. So
I don't know about that. I'm not afraid to waste bait.
Yeah.
So if I don't get the result that I want in one way, I'm going to do it. I'm going to go through all the ways until I get the result that I want, which is that thing takes off.
Yeah, that's it, right?
Yeah.
Away from the boat and
Right.
swimming kind of down,
Yep.
right? If you get that kind of a bait, you just know you're going to get bit.
Absolutely.
You can feel it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's awesome. Andrew says, I met some Australian guys who were using spinning reels, talking about hook up, drag, and then locking down with circle hooks.
What? What?
I'm not sure if that's a question. I think he was just perhaps just saying that. I met some Australian guys who were using spinning reels, talking about hook up, drag, and then locking down with circle hooks.
I don't know what that means.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, Andrew.
Yeah.
Steve Ramirez, do we like we do to squid throw that circle hook on the deck of the boat to dull the point out first? Now Steve's back to his usual dumb idea. Yeah. Does that sound like a good idea to you?
Well, let me tell you something. You have a dull circle
hook. Way to go,
hook.
Steve.
I mean, maybe on a squid it doesn't matter. A dull circle hook means that you're going to spend all your time at the bait tank trying to stick that thing through a wiggling sardine. So, I mean, maybe just for me personally, I don't want it dull. I would rather, circle hooks, hooking a sardine, that small of a circle hook on a 6-inch sardine.
Yeah.
Man, that's a pain already.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I don't want any more disadvantage. When it goes through, there's kind of this push method that I use with my index finger. It's got to go penetrate and go right through them so I can be in the water ASAP.
Yeah.
So I don't want it dull. I don't need to mangle up and thread it. We don't any of that with a.
Steve, I knew you'd come through with a bonehead idea.
Leave him alone.
Actually, hey, everybody out there, you know how sometimes you'll get rid of your hooks after you've caught a few fish on them? Put them in your pocket, and I'll give you Steve Bermudez' phone number, and he'll buy all your used hooks. I'm sure he will do that. Steve says, oh, no, wait, Eric Sheets, our guy is back. I see a new winter podcast, Fireside FA Chats, sitting by a fire pit, burning a few cigars, and talking about the
You tell us when, I'll pick Phil up on my way down, and away we go.
Eric, I'm in.
That's it.
Say no more, man. That would be great. Tons of people watching. Hit that like button, everybody. Share this right now. We've got a lot more to go here, and I'll tell you, I'm already learning an incredible amount. Steve says, never set a circle hook. Always wait for the fish to turn and run before taking up the slack. Agree?
Yep.
Well, Steve's back on our good side again.
Yeah, he's back on our good side.
Yeah, I can always rely on Steve for some comic relief. Yeah. All right, do we want to do number 3?
Let's go number 3. All right.
Let's do it.
Here we go. I'm going to just read it here. The magic button, low gear, okay, is to be used judiciously. So, here we go. I have found, and what I have observed and what I have experienced is that the low gear is at some point can actually become a liability.
Okay.
And what I have noticed is that because this grade of fish, depending on what mood they're in and if they're ass kickers or not, the sense of security that button hitting the button on the side of the reel gives you is false. I find that you have to stay tight with the fish, and if you go right to low gear, I have seen it where guys that get bit on a jig on a bluefin, and that fish is way out there now, and it's a good one. I mean, you just kind of know you got 25 pounds of drag on them, and if they're going out, the kind of the telltale sign is like if they take 100 yards off of your reel at that proper drag setting, you kind of know, and it's a good one.
It's a good fish. Yeah.
And does that, and then they're trying to get turned on this thing, and it's not happening, and they'll hit the low gear button. And oh yeah, it's happening. Then the fish turns around. He doesn't feel the tension. It's not tight on him anymore. He turns around and he charges the boat. Well, now you're in what 1.3 to 1.
Yeah.
You're not keeping up with that thing. And as soon as you come back tight on him, a shift in where the angle of the hook or whatever. Yeah, I'm not a fish, and nor am I underwater when these things are hooked. I don't know.
Yeah.
But just when it slacks off, things happen. And so I always say in a lot of my workshops that I do that low gear, what was it designed to do? It was designed to actually get you back into high gear.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, I will use it when do I use it? I use it when it's fish are for the most part straight up and down. And when it becomes very difficult to get that line going in high gear, I go into low. And I think what I the only way I can describe it is I think that by going into low gear sometimes and now actually getting that thing to move a little bit, it kind of changes their attitude, gives them a little attitude adjustment.
That's cool.
And when that happens, as soon as I start to notice it's getting too easy turning a handle, or I see that the load on the rod has there's not that much load on it. That means I'm not keeping tight with that fish. It's right back into high gear.
Yeah.
And I think that that's one of the things that anglers need to really do, especially if you're new to tuna fishing. Practice getting in and out of gear. You know, it's pretty easy these days. It's not the old days of the pen where it's clanking back and forth. These days, they're all the gearing is pre-meshed and you hit the button and away you go.
Yeah.
But it is more important, in my opinion, to go from low gear to high than it is from high gear to low. I've never had an emergency situation on a fish where I have to go into low.
Yeah.
Even if your reel's low gear was blown out and you couldn't get into it, you can still land the fish and you're still getting line in, but it's so vitally important to stay tight with this fish. And that's what kind of keeps him kind of coming your way. It is a battle of inches, right? When you're battling, you're fighting big fish.
Yeah.
But if you're going into low gear right from the get-go, and they really haven't settled in yet, and they're still out there and doing what they do, it becomes problematic. And you talk about jig fishing. As soon as if you slack off, you pull the hook on them,
right?
And you wind your jig back. It's cool. You get your
cool.
jig back, but you don't get the fish.
Exactly.
So that low gear, it's a blessing for sure, and it was a game changer at the time. Cal and Ray Lemmy, did stuff, and then Cal, took that to a whole new level. And Eric, but it's not something. You don't hit it right from the beginning. It can create all kinds of problems for you. So use the 2-speed, the low gear is to be used judiciously.
You said that if you didn't have the low gear, you'd have no problem landing a fish. What if you only had the low gear? It would really be tough.
Think about that one. That's a very good point. If your high gear was blown out and all you had was a low, man, it becomes really problematic there. Right?
Yeah, I think so.
There you go.
Yeah.
There you go.
That makes a great deal of sense. All right, let's see. Kevin says, any tips for slow pitching for rockfish? And planning on trying to slow pitch for them my first time tomorrow. All right. Hey, thanks, Kevin, for checking in.
What are the rules now? You got to go below 300
feet,
right?
Yeah.
So maybe at 300, I use the knife jigs on them, so I'm not really slow. I got to work them that way. Kind of a little bit slower on it, but I'm, because you're going 300 plus now.
Yeah.
A slow pitch, I guess if you don't have a lot of current, you could get straight up and down there, but if you do have any type of current, well, then at this point you can use your slow pitch rod, but you'd have to change out your jig to a knife jig, something that's not going to
something's going to get down.
Yeah, something that's going to get down on them and not catch all that. Catch the current and kind of have that water resistance, if you will.
Yeah.
So that's best thing I could tell you, because like our last trip, I told you about Rambo Zone.
Yeah.
Where we don't measure reds in inches, we measure them in pounds.
Dude, I'm so jealous. I love that kind of fishing.
We were fishing 3, 4, and even down to say 500 feet, and I was fishing a 300 and 350 gram knife jig. I changed the hooks, of course, the configuration. I put the twin hooks on top and a single on bottom. I think I don't know how many times where you get 2 big reds on it.
Oh my God.
Sorry, I got off track. But that's, you're getting deep now. And they where we were anyway, they ate the knife jigs like it was going out of style.
Was it straight reds?
Yeah.
No Boccaccio?
Very few. Very few. And then,
which I don't have a problem with Boccaccio myself. I like those big old.
Yep, and then we had my favorite bankies. Yeah. So we had those, but in the end, I challenged anyone. We had reds and bankies and all those fish get all filleted and processed. Right? I don't know. I can't you cook them all and they're all delicious to me. So I'm a happy camper.
Exactly. But you had what, 10 fish?
Mm-hmm.
And it weighed.
Yeah, it was in that like upper 60s as low as far as when I brought it to the processor.
Yeah. Oh,
it was no joke.
That's an average of like 7 pounds.
Yeah,
of
you're
fish.
all like, dang.
Those are some fat vermilion,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Man, I'm so jealous. I love that kind of fishing.
Yeah, it was a really good time.
That is awesome. Hey, good luck, Kevin. Hope you get them. Jeff Yeoman's 540 Slingers. I'm in for the cigar fishing chats as well. I'm totally into that. We could even do it outdoors, man. Down at Bolsa Chica with a fire going and surf fishing rods out. Hey, Jeff, go get that rod while we're going here, man. That would be so much fun. All right, Chris says, Brian, I have so many questions about the cadence of speed jigging. Help.
Yep. I guess if I was to say anything on that, as far as the speed is concerned, I will tell you how you know when you're doing it wrong. How about that?
Okay.
So in the vertical jigging arena, we're dealing with a lot of slack line. And so kind of, it's not like the 100% like this is it. This is really just kind of a guideline. But if you're ending up with, say, tip wrap, in other words, when you go down and you lower the rod to wind up the slack, if that line comes swooping back around, you've lifted the rod too much. So now you've moved the jig too much, and you're not able to keep up with the slack that on the sink.
Yeah.
So there's that. And if you when you go lift the rod tip up and you turn the handle on and you feel the weight of the jig before you get one complete revolution of the handle with it, and you're not lifting enough. So now you're battling the weight of the jig. So if you keep those two things in mind and you start to work at it, then you will at some point become more proficient at the cadence. And then, of course, there is nothing set in stone. I read the Bible often. I never see anything in there on how to work a jig. I'm not kidding you, right?
That's true.
Yeah. So whatever's going to get bit, then you just keep doing it. One of my dear friends, comes out with us, fishes with us. He's 78 years old, 78 years young, and he is coming out, and he is, in many trips, he is putting on a friggin' clinic.
Really?
With speed jigging rods and reels.
Whoa. Good for him.
There's no blazing fast movement, but he's understanding how to maximize his efficiency, and he's not cranking against the weight of the jig. He's making sure he gets a full revolution of the handle, and he's lifting not too aggressively either, and he seems to get.
You know his name? Do you remember his name?
Of course I do. Albert Yee.
All right, Albert Yee. Okay, there you go. Albert, you're a star tonight, thanks to this gentleman.
Oh, yeah. He
78?
78.
Way to go, Albert.
He dusted one off last September, a 243 on the jigging out.
Wow.
Yeah, but you'll kind of hear my tips on that moving forward. I got that to elaborate more into your question. I've got something at the end of number 5.
I'm good. I'm still excited about this. By the way, I'm up in the bow of the Independence, Brian, and I'm filming a guy that you know, JC, and John Collis.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
And I'm filming him, and he's on a tough fish, and he gets a wine. He just gets like one wine, and he looks at me and he goes, "You know what? Brian Nguyen told me that is, I forget how many inches, a wine. I thought he said 42. He goes, one wine equals, so you're getting quite a bit. Don't feel discouraged if all you can get is one wine because you're making good progress.
Correct.
So how weird is that I'm up there and your name comes up? JC loves you, by the way.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
He's a nice guy. I haven't had the pleasure of meeting him in person. He
kidding.
wanted to come to that workshop of fighting fish on the jigging rods that I had in Long Beach. But I think he got the flu or something like that.
Super nice guy.
Yeah.
Very, very nice gentleman for sure. All right, let's keep it rocking here, man. We've got some more questions we're going to get into. If you're okay, Brian, with that, because man, these people are loving you. There's a ton of people watching. Hit that like button, everybody. We really appreciate it. Don Salveson, right on. Low gear is a problem if put into place early with 300 plus gram jigs.
Yeah. Yep.
It is, right? Yep. It seems like it's more of a problem that way. Chad says he's heading to the Coronado Islands on Saturday. What gear should he bring? Probably like 25 to 40 pound, right? There's not much surface action going on there. I've been watching it. There's an occasional yellowtail.
Man, you go on a full day now, especially if you're fishing on a San Diego.
Oh, my God.
One day, 0. Next day, 110. Like,
plus
what in the
yellowfin.
world?
I
Yeah.
know.
So you just, I hate to say it, but you almost have to bring
the kitchen sink. You do.
Yeah.
You do. If you're fishing the islands proper, you're going to be catching mostly rockfish, maybe some calico bits. If you're offshore, like Brian is saying, who knows, man? It could be wide
you're
open
on one of those
yellowfin.
trips, man. And
Yeah.
it's like, here we go.
I know that I don't know that Booger was running the San Diego, but the other day he had 107 yellowfin tuna, and then he went back to the same area the next day, and conditions had deteriorated, and he didn't have a very good day.
Yeah.
But man, those guys, from what's their motto? From sunrise to sundown, or something like that.
5 a.m. to dark. 5 a.m. to dark boat.
Exactly, man. I love it. Kevin says, how many hooks are allowed on one single knife jig?
I think it's D, all you can eat.
563, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just one jig, so there's no. Don't quote me on it. I fish.
I'm pretty sure Sam says the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You can, on one jig, you can have as many as you want.
Yeah. Now you can only get like 8 rock cod to bite on each.
Yeah. You're in good shape.
Yeah. I'm limited out.
There you go.
I'm done. That'd be cool. All right, Christopher says, any recommendations on reels for jigging and why? More importantly, why? Thanks, Christopher.
I don't know. I think you have reels that are off the shelf, and you have off the shelf, and you have those kind of specialty lever drag, conventional jigging reels. And one of the things I talk about the difference between those two reels. If you went and picked up an off the shelf reel, a Daiwa Saltiga 2-speed, a Penn Fathom 2-speed, they're not a one-trick pony. You can take that reel up. Let's just use like the Penn Fathom 40 Narrow, the Saltiga 55. You take the Saltiga 55 off of that jigging rod, and now it turns into your 80 or 100-pound nighttime reel, or your 80-pound daytime sinker rig. The single-speed jigging reels, while they are superb for the purpose of jigging. That's all they do.
Yeah.
And then they're quite costly. There's baseline product out there, but then you're looking at stuff that, goes above $850.
Yeah.
For a single speed jigging reel. So if you're, depending on your level, depending on your level of proficiency, and and how much you enjoy it, I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. But when you ask like what's best, I'd have to ask you for what application.
Right.
Are we talking bluefin, or are we talking yellowfin, or I don't know. What if they
would have to get more into it. Yeah. All right. Very good. Richie Rich says the Bible says to cast on the left side of the boat.
Right.
Okay. There it is, man. I didn't know that. Albert Yee says thanks for the shout out.
There you go. See that?
78 years young. Albert. Thanks for being an inspiration to all of us, my friend. I deeply appreciate it. Anthony says, everyone hit that like button and subscribe. Thank you, guys. He's got to get back to work. Have a great night.
There you go. Thank you, Anthony.
Catch the rest of it. Yeah, thanks, Anthony. Kevin, for a slow pitching rigging recommendation, do you usually use fluoro or mono top shot? And what pound? If you don't mind me asking, thank you so much. I love Brian and the Friedman Adventure Show. Not as much as we love you, Kevin. That's for sure.
Thank you, Kevin. I use a lot of mono, but if we're talking like with the bluefin, I use a lot for tuna fishing. I use a lot of mono. If for rock fishing, then they're not necessarily taking drag. There's no end game. There's no 200 yards of line out and having to go to full in the end and things like that.
Yeah.
There's not that dynamic to it. You could probably get away with the fluoro. It certainly, you'll have a little bit more abrasion resistance against the bottom or anything like that, and it will probably last long. You can keep dropping it in if it's just rockfish. But he's still either way. I fish mono. I use fluoro really for bait fishing, mainly. So
I know some old school guy like Brockman, Don Brockman. I just had lunch with him the other day, and he's like, I only fish mono. I don't fish fluoro. And I did that Legends trip with all the old guys. That's funny, man. Nobody had any 2-speed reel. I mean, some of the younger guys did, but a lot of the old guys were just the old gear. And it still works. I mean, it still works, but staying up with technology, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
I think for any species that's not going to take, you're not fishing like 80-pound gear and up, and they're not going to take an awful lot of line. So yellows and things like that. The fluorocarbon, no problem.
Yeah.
But getting into this, the bluefin, anything of size and that's going to require time and heavy drag settings, I fish mono.
Yeah. All right. Good stuff. Eric Sheets says Albert Yee is the man.
Yeah.
All right. I'll take your advice, or I'll take your word on that, Eric. And Albert, great for joining us again. By the way, when Brian gets to number 5, you can ask some other questions also. So, we're a long way from through with all you great folks out there. Dzung Duong is a great person and always a supporter of the Friedman Adventures family. So good to see you here this evening. What is your opinion on setting up assist hooks on knife and flat fall jigs, such as how many on top and bottom jig with various weight categories such as 500, 400, 300, 200 grams?
Again, I guess, if we're talking about that bluefin, several of the boats now in the fleet, they don't actually want you to have a top hook anymore on your knife jigs fishing at night.
Why?
Safety reasons.
Oh, okay.
It's low light situation,
Yes.
and when they flip that thing over, that single hook it catches the rail, and it creates problems, or it could catch you. It catches them all the time on their pant leg and things like that. And also that top hook, when they're trying to remove the hooks from your fish, that top hook, if it didn't hook, if it didn't swallow the jig, it starts swinging around and gets them in the hand and so on and so forth.
Yeah, it's
Daytime,
dangerous.
they're a little bit more lenient on it. So I would say that I will tell you how I like to fish them personally.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to bluefin. So at night, I like to have twin hooks on the bottom. That's kind of that's a must for me at night. I mean, unless they are not biting it. Yes, I have seen that where it's nighttime, Brian. They don't really care. No, I've seen trips where they care. There's a reason why certain trips, some guys are getting bitten, some not. I'm not saying it's all about the jig. There are a lot of other factors to it. It's not just luck.
Yeah.
So I like to have twin hooks on the bottom. And the reason for this is because think about what happens in the dark. Low light, right? So there's one. So now when you get into a tangle, it takes a little bit more time to get you out of that. And when you're in a tangle, one of the things that I say is the moment that a crewman comes to help you or you ask a crewman for help, you have now surrendered that arena to them. You don't do anything unless they tell you to.
Right.
Don't free spool it. Don't ask me how I know. It happened this trip, this year. I got, I popped off my specter right in the middle from a free spool. But don't, once you surrender that arena to them, let's take a look. What if the tangle's bad? You've got 3, 4, 5 guys in a tangle. You're at a standstill. So remember what I said about keeping tight with that fish?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, twin hooks on the bottom will actually keep them on better. So I always have twin hooks on the bottom.
And nothing on top.
On the Cortez, they don't seem to have a problem with the top hook. But again, I do. Our charters only fish 13 guys.
Yeah.
So it's not, we can take our time. It's not such, not too much hustle and bustle.
Yeah, not crazy.
Yeah. So, but like I know the Pacific Queen at night, it's no top hooks and Nuluan at night. I will respect whatever the boat tells me to do, and I'm gonna have a good time doing it.
Yeah.
But it's twin hooks always at the bottom. And in daytime now they care now. Now they're paying really close attention to the jig, the action, color sometimes. So you won't see me fishing twin hooks on the bottom and a hook on top. Most of the times on smaller jigs, I fish a single hook on the top.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you find, I know those like smaller, shinier jigs, like daytime are good. Do the knife jigs work during the daytime?
Absolutely.
Very well? I can tell by the way you're talking.
Absolutely.
But you don't see many guys doing it.
Well, you don't get a lot of bites.
Yeah.
Just really because the daytime, there is something that they key in on, and at night we're so spoiled by how they bite it at night on some trips, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it sinks, and then it stops.
Boom, you're
Here
on.
we go, you're on. Or you get a few cranks in, and away you go. In the daytime, you have to put in the effort. You are changing out jigs constantly. You are trying to adjust and adapt. You're fishing the boat on the slide and not the way that you would think, like for your favorite, the albacore, where you fire it off and somebody yells jig strike and you go.
Yeah.
We're fishing it differently on the slide. We actually fire it off on the bow
and
start to walk it down, right? So it's a lot more. There's a lot more work in the daytime, but the reward is significant because sometimes that bigger fish tends to. Yep, exactly. They're kind of hanging deep out below the smaller grade stuff too. So and they bite them different in the daytime. It's a whole new. It's a different game in the daytime.
Yeah, perfect. So. Steve Bermudez is back. Good question or bad question? I haven't looked at it yet. What do you think?
I'm not gonna say anything.
I'm gonna say brilliant question.
Okay, go.
All right, here we go. You got to be. I'm starting to read like a moron. You got to be below 300 feet. Never use those long jigs for rock fishing unless you're on a private boat. Or you're the only one fishing on that side of the boat. It causes too many tangles at $50 a jig. Yeah, he was complaining to me the other day that he was on a boat and guys were fishing knife jigs and they were like doing this and tangling everybody all around him. So maybe he had a little.
Maybe they put on a little heavier jig.
Yeah, maybe, right? That goes straight down.
Also, I take the bottom hooks off. And so that way, once it makes contact with the bottom, I'm not snagging into, hooking them in a rock or anything like that. They eat it just fine.
Yeah, with the top hook.
Yeah, I'm plopping them on deck, pulling the hooks out, right back down again. But fish a little heavier jig. Again, that's all about paying attention, being observant of what's going on around you.
Steve, I'm going to give you credit for a very good question. Just because I'm in a liberal mood. Not that it was a good question. No, it was, Steve. David Alcantara. I've known Steve for 40 years, by the way, everybody out there. So I'm not going to pick on you. Believe me. I've known Steve for a long time. Brian is the man. Thanks for assist hooks and smoking deal in the Rage 90. Can't wait to get out and land a big bluefin tuna on that reel. David Alcantara is a great Friedman Adventures family member.
Yeah, very cool. I met with him a couple nights ago. He came out and bought one of my reels. I had to make room for something else.
David's a great. I see him all the time. So, David, thank you. Great stuff. Emmanuel Navedo from Florida. He was just on the ledge and he says they don't seem to care if you have a hook on top. So yeah, it's different from boat to boat, right?
Yeah. I respect, like I said, I respect what they say. They tell me no top hooks. Good, I'm putting twin bottoms on, and away we go.
I kind of get what you're talking about because I was filming on board the Relentless, and I was up in the bow, and a fish had just come over the rail, and that nasty hook, and I wasn't paying attention. And plus, the gaff was there, too. Yeah. And I was getting ready to run around the corner because there was another fish going. And Mikey, the guy that runs the Relentless, goes, Phil.
Yep.
Look down there, man. Be careful. And I'm thankful that he did that because – in fact, that's on video, him yelling like, be careful, man. And so, it's it can get a little crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and running is perhaps running for me is not exactly running. But
a brisk walk.
Yeah, there you go. That's more like it. Matthew Tamayo says, fun show. When will you be having another seminar, Brian? Anything planned?
I've got a couple ideas going on to probably be after Thanksgiving, though. Yeah, I got a busy month, and I'm my full-time job. It's crazy right now. Yeah. So after Thanksgiving, when things start to calm down a bit, I'll catch a break here in December. Yeah. And then I'm right back on it in January.
Yeah. I'm kind of. We had our last charter here recently, and then I've got a couple of personal things. Like Eddie's memorial, and then I'm going full rack. But the podcasts are going to continue.
Yeah. So there'll be several. I've got some subject matters that I'm thinking of right now, and kind of see where that goes. And I will send a text message to Jeff Yeomans and ask him what he thinks.
And send me one when you plan it. Yeah. We'll let you all know. Yeah. I could not refer you to a better person than Brian Nguyen.
Thank you.
You can see here this evening, whether it's for Medicare or it's for fishing information or both.
Yep. Let's see here. My phone is going off. I wonder.
I'll let you take a play. Let me read another comment for you. Kevin, so far, knife jigs on rockfish, do you recommend just the top?
Yeah.
And other slow pitching jigs?
On top, too.
Top and bottom?
Yeah. No,
just top.
I fish on the top. Yeah. I don't have any problems hooking them. I got two on, multiple times on that last trip on the top hook.
Really?
Yeah.
Two?
Because I put twin hooks on top.
You got 2 Vermilions? Those big ones?
Yeah.
Oh,
You're
making me jealous.
One of my friends was bringing up 3 at a time on a Ganyan.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, 2 or 3, something like that.
Maybe 2, because you can only use 2 hooks.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Definitely. All right, Steve Bermudez for Rockfish in California. Only 2 hooks, but a treble hook is considered 1 hook. Thank you very much, Steve. Excellent. Yes, that was good. That was another guy. Excellent point, Steve. A treble hook, everybody. This might be number 6 in Brian's thing tonight. Treble hook is considered 1 hook.
There you go.
Dezung DeLong says, advice on the use of treble hook on small flat fall jigs, eddy bombs for bluefin night jigging.
You're welcome to do it. It's probably, it's definitely a very popular way now. Shoot, I actually asked my good friend Chin, who's the sales manager at Owner Hooks. I said, you guys have any more ST66 and 5/0? Apparently, all you West Coast anglers have bought them out of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
wow.
just to put them on the bottom of their jigs. When the way that that treble hook, it actually, if you're fishing on conventional, on normal like rail rods and 2-speed reels, the treble hook is probably a good idea. And the reason for this is because if they bite that jig on the sink, I think I said this. I shared this with your viewers a couple of years ago on the show here. But
have we been doing this for a couple of years?
Yeah.
Now? Dude.
So, but when you have the ring on a jig, you have your ringed hook, and you've got. So here's the bottom, right? So this is the top. That hook, as the jig is sinking, you gotta remember that it's gonna pin itself to the jig. So because there's that water, that the force of that water that's as it's sinking down fast.
Yeah.
So now, if you've got a great big long J hook, say like a Southern tuna style hook, a Mustad 7691,
right,
or an Owner Jobu, when you get bit on the sink, you're asking the hook to come back out to be able to get the barb engaged and to be able to hook that fish. Well, that distance alone, you could very well miss that fish.
It seems like it.
Yeah, the barb is not engaged all the time.
Yeah.
So, whereas the treble, regardless of its pin to the jig, that there's going to be contact made with that barb.
Yeah.
So that's why now, that's where the whole bite leader comes in, and not necessarily for teeth, but because you have no idea where they're going to hook.
Yeah.
It could be in the gill plate. So now he's got all that line in his mouth, and he's just going back and forth. The gill plate's getting it, things like that.
Oh my God.
So on conventional rail rods, you almost, you want that treble hook. I'm not going to say that it is like the best. I don't know what that is.
Yeah.
But it seems to be, it's gained so much in popularity. And some guys, sometimes they'll say, if it hooks them right, it wears down the fish a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think that, there's some validity to that, but it's got to hook them in the right place that does that type of damage to them.
Yes.
So if you get them in the throat or something like that, it's not really doing it. But at least you land the fish. Your chances of landing that fish has increased because of the fact that you had all those barbs. You had at least one barb or one point engaged when that fish swallowed it, regardless of where he swallowed, whether it's on the sink or on the retreat.
Right. So that makes sense. All right, Panda 56. When night jigging, is there too fast of a speed? My right forearm gets a lot of practice and can get that jig moving. So much so that I get a lot of line twist and the line starts to curl on itself.
There is if you're using like rail rods, there is a way to maximize efficiency when you're at the rail trying to crank that thing up all night. One of the things I've taught my guys, I see guys they'll lay the rod on the rail, which is good. Yeah, you don't want to be hanging onto the rod and trying to crank up a 400-gram jig, right? No. So you lay the foregrip on the rail. But one of the things I see the guys do is they back off and they put their hand in front, and it's a means to guide the line on. And I totally get it. But you got to think now, when the captain calls out there at 300 feet, you're only jigging a specific zone. You might go 50 feet below. Let's just say you're within 100 feet.
Mm-hmm.
There's no need you have a lot of line out. There's really no need to guide the line on, especially given that 75 to 100 feet zone that you are jigging in.
Yeah, right.
You need to concentrate more on cranking and trying to draw a bite, right?
Yes.
So if you've got your hand at the foregrip and you're trying to guide the line on, what happens is that where does the rod have a tendency? What makes a rod twist? it ain't the rod, and it's not necessarily the fish. It's the reel.
Yeah.
Right. So now, if you actually kind of held on to the side plate of the reel and you got the rod under your arm, you can just turn that handle. Go up 10 cranks, back down, up 10 cranks. Hey, it's important to guide the line on when you're battling the fish, and even more so, it's important when the captain says, "Wind them up, gang."
Yeah.
But when you're just working that bite zone, 10 cranks in, back down, 10 cranks in, it really doesn't matter. The weight of the jig, plus the fact that it's pushing water resistance coming up, it's spooling on tight enough. So there's a trick there. But as far as going too fast, I've been saying that for years. There is such a thing. There's fast, and then there's obscenely fast.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's almost like macho drag, right?
Yeah,
or whatever.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen guys come on, and they will, because the 500 gram insert jig name here worked for them on the last trip or on trips prior. They have that jig tied on at all times, and in very little current, and they're biting at 240 feet. Your 500 gram jig just went right through them.
Yeah.
And they're wondering, we're not getting bites. Well, your jig's it's just barreling down there, and there's really not an opportunity for them to take a look at it.
Yeah, right.
So that's kind of the deal there.
All right, perfect. Albert Yee says, I owe all my success to Brian for TEA.
Teaching. Oh, I think he had another one here.
Yeah. Oh, okay. There we go. I'll read that one. Jack says, I have a question. Do you recommend to start off with a flat fall jig for rockfish or directly fish the knife jigs?
And I'm spoiled. I just want a knife jig. Just
you want to get down there and get bit.
Get ready.
Why not though, right?
Yeah.
God, that must have been so much.
Yeah, I think if you're in the shallows, is really like the slow pitch. That works. It's a lot of fun when you're fishing in less than 100 feet.
Oh God, yeah.
Yeah. So flat fall them all day. But when you're
in that deep
water, yeah, you want it. I want it down. I'm ready to rock, baby. I want to bring a fish up.
Yeah, I thought Albert was talking. You had something to do with tea or something, but he's got another comment.
Okay.
Because when I was living in China, that was a big deal, Brian.
Yeah.
You'd go to somebody's house and they'd have this elaborate tea.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that was a lot of fun. But Albert says, I owe all my success to Brian for teaching me and others on his charters all about the basics on speed jigging and working with each of us on our techniques. Brian, Albert's giving
Thank you, Al. Really appreciate that.
Can I say something to Albert?
Go for it.
Albert, your name is my father's name, so I love it. Albert. It's my middle name, too.
Mm-hmm.
It's my son's middle name, both Patrick and Philip. So Albert's very important to all the Friedman family, Albert. Steve Bermudez, Brian's the man. Thanks for all your help, Brian. Notice something about that?
No,
what do you notice? Anything? Who did he leave out?
You.
He's angry. Steve's not taking this. Steve, that's not nice. Let's do number 4.
Number 4.
We're doing about a half an hour for each one of these. So.
It's going. It's going.
It's good. I'm enjoying this, and so is everybody else.
The worst time to learn anything new is when you need it. So
that is so true.
Right?
Yeah.
I mean, you go onto a trip and you're hearing, hey guys, we're gonna go to the big fish zone right now. That's not necessarily the time on the boat. You saw it on your YouTube while driving down in traffic from LA to San Diego, and you decided to give it a shot on this trip. And then you find out the hard way that maybe you didn't do it right. So the worst time to try anything or learn anything new is when you need it.
You're under pressure.
Under pressure.
Yeah.
I did that workshop on fighting fish with jigging rods. A lot of people, they own them. They're starting to see how effective they are in times where maybe they're not biting full speed, and you kind of have a little advantage on those. And they hook fish on it, and it ends up being the worst time of their lives because they kind of figured out that you can't fight them the same way with those rods as you would a rail rod.
Yeah.
And so the worst, you'll hear like I seen it on video or something like that, and I got it. But then the reality is you're trying to pick up something new when you actually need it most.
Yeah.
And it's not going to pan out.
Right.
And just because one fish on one trip behaved one way does not mean that it's going to be that way on this trip, because one thing that you happen to throw out there that got bit by God knows why, But if you can't answer the why, then you won't be able to repeat that.
Right.
Was there something, the conditions called for it? But learning those new things, that's a tough one. Learning, you got a new knot that you're doing. Hey, the guys will watch us on the speed jigging outfits anyway. We tie the chain knot on poppers. We tie the chain knot to the jigs, and they'll see it, and it looks cool, and it seems pretty simple the way that it's laid out on YouTube. And then it ends up maybe not being tied correctly, and then you learn the hard way.
Yeah.
A fish comes off, and again, I've said this again at one of our podcasts that we did. Your window of opportunity. And you all want to be on those trips where they bite good. I personally, and Albert will tell you this. I don't like wide open bites.
Mm-hmm.
It's cool, and you can write about it, and you can use various adjectives to describe that trip at the end.
Right.
I like it when it's a slow pick, and that's just me. That's how I take my enjoyment now when I fish.
Yes.
So wide open bites aren't a telltale sign of like what exactly is effective, because Phil, your favorite species, the albacore, you ever seen them bite a bare hook?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Right.
All the time.
Yeah. So on that trip, did you really have to pick the right bait?
No.
And
Yeah,
understand
you're right.
boat trip, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to learn something new, and you want to you want to try something new, practice that at home. Get it right. If you want to use YouTube, you want to do anything like that, go into your favorite tackle shop. Maybe some of the guys know how to do that. Hey, I don't know how to tie every single one of them. And then there's knots that I do know how to tie, but I'm not going to do it on a rocking boat either.
Yeah.
Crimping. When I was younger, I watched a Michael Folks video called "A Tribute to Wahoo," and it had John Lincoln's on there of Mako Products.
John Lincoln's. I wonder where John is. Is he around?
I saw him a couple years ago at the Longfin event.
Wow.
Yeah. So he was looking good.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Glad to hear that.
But he said something that was very interesting, and I took it. As a young man, a young boy, I says, I get it. He says, people rig through mimicry, not through knowledge or experience. They see it, and they think that okay, I kind of have the gist of it, and away they go.
Yeah.
But until there's that, maybe that's a Brianism. Until you know why, you'll never get it, right? Until you know why you got bit doing something, you'll never truly get it.
That's true. That sounds like John Lincoln.
Yeah. So it's these to try out something new, or to try to learn a new technique when you actually need it. It doesn't work.
No.
It's never worked.
Right.
Could you imagine a police officer having to go into a building and
save
people, and he's now got to learn a new technique?
Hey, give me the manual there while this gets choking to death.
Yeah. So all these things, you iron those out, and that, we can stop on this one, answer questions, but this leads right up to number 5.
Well, extrapolating from what you just said, when fishing dies in the wintertime, at least, that sounds like a good time to start doing your intel, your research, to perfecting your knots. Am I on the right track?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, you figure this stuff out, get it aired out on dry land, and then you can apply that once you have full 100% confidence in your abilities and your proficiency at whatever knot, whatever rigging style, whatever technique, and away you go. Fishing the rail. Take a look at that one. Where we're at now, it's a technique. It's not just laying it on the rail and the rail is your friend. Listen, I've heard it. I've seen the T-shirts too.
Yeah, right.
But there is a technique to it, and until you get that technique, that rail, you're going to wear yourself out.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So you came to that Turner's event, Turner's Rod and Reel Club event, and you filmed that one actually.
Yes.
We talking about
that was a lot of fun.
Rail, right?
Yeah.
And we had a lot of fun that night. And again, whatever new technique, whatever it is that is new that you want to learn and apply, you gotta get that. Your skills honed in that before you actually take it out. Remember, what is the long range seminar say? Right, we're in their arena now.
Yeah.
And we need every advantage possible. We don't want to have anything. Every time I make a drop in, or I make a cast, a fly line bait, a pop, whatever, I'm always thinking to myself, is this ready for a potential fish of a lifetime?
Yeah.
You know,
That's a good question to ask yourself.
yeah. And so that's, you know, I question everything so that I can get to the why, and then that way I can honestly tell people I get it.
All right, perfect.
Yep.
Well, I don't see a question up there. I have a couple, but it sounds like you want to segue into number 5. It sounds like it's a good time to do it. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Let's do
number
that.
5, I said fishing is like anything you want to be good at. You have to practice. And this one here is really important. The guys on here that say they want to learn the cadence of speed jigging, you know, where you can't, that's the one thing that it's hard to practice at home. You're not going to go through your swimming pool at 5 feet deep and really get that. So you know what you do? You bring that on a half day or 3/4 day, whatever you are going on. And once you are done having fun and you've limited out on whatever species it is that you're targeting, you drop it in and you start working on your technique. Surface iron fishing, you want to get good at casting the surface iron, you bring that. There are these winter trips for cod now, bring your surface iron rod when you are rock fishing. Practice casting with it. Once you limit it out on your rockfish, take it up to the bow and practice that stuff. Fishing is one of those, we call it sport fishing, so I would assume then that it is a sport. We practice in every other sport, but fishing is one of those where a lot of people don't think about that. When I was young, I subscribed to the Frank Lopresti talking about the clothespin on your rig on a cast.
Simulates an anchovy.
And we would do that. We would take our rigs. We would one of the recommendations he made was take your rigs and walk around the block with it so that you're used to the weight of it. Right. So like an international 30 or a 50 never felt any different to us. It wasn't just another tool that we had. Right.
Yeah. Exactly.
So it's anything. I put it. You can you can do it at home. All right, casting, fly line. You want to cast. I tie on a small little like a big hammer or something like that mimics the bait. And, don't put a sinker on. That's cheating, and you might blow out a window too.
Yeah, right.
But a little 3-inch big hammer or something like that. Spray bottle. Wet your line. And you can practice casting at home. Want to learn how to fight fish with the jigging rods? You practice at home. You tie off the hitch on your car or your truck, and you pull against that in the way that maybe you don't have to do it my way, but if you came to one of my workshops and you practice that, you would get it. The more you do it, the more you're comfortable with it, and so that kind of falls in line with the don't be trying to learn anything new when you actually need it.
Yeah, you need to practice. It's like anything else. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice, right?
Yeah,
it's so true. And guys, that's why sometimes I feel like some of these guys on the half-day boats. I'm talking about the hot dog guys. There's some guys that are on this Monte Carlo.
Yeah.
The repetition of choosing a hot bait, of casting, of all that takes place on a half-day boat, perhaps more than when you're on an Albacore boat or something where you make 3 casts during the day on some trips or no casts. But on a half-day, it's that repetition, which is practice, right?
Yeah, all through our childhood, my brother and I, we didn't know, an anchovy rod. You have to get this rod for anchovies. We didn't know what an anchovy rod was because we could cast them on, CalStar 670, 7 foot 20 to 40.
Yeah.
It wasn't a thing. It wasn't like you had to have an anchovy rod. We didn't know what because we could do it with whatever rod and reel that we had.
Yeah.
But nowadays I think we're so spoiled by the sardine. Well, this last run here, this last couple of weeks here, that sardine has been the size of anchovies.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
It got small, didn't it?
It got small real quick.
Yeah.
So to fish one on like 40, at most, that's probably the heaviest that, one could do it if one was not as proficient. 40-pound string, but, 50 and 60, some guys, we could fish them on. Understanding, of course, all the various mechanics that go into it. And where does that come in? Practice.
Yes, absolutely. Right? Absolutely.
Yeah. So
it's good stuff. Hey, Albert Yee, I've learned so much from Brian, and I'm thankful for him introducing me to speed jigging. It works well for my age. 78 years old, everybody. Stature so much better than fishing heavy, stiff rail rods which beat me up.
Yeah.
So that's great for a
Yeah.
guy his age, right?
Yeah, it's
My age too.
Yeah, I think he said something. Eric Sheets on the trip. He said that the speed jigging stuff has really kept him in the game.
Yeah.
Because otherwise, lugging around a big 2-speed reel, it gets a little trying.
Yes, for sure.
Yeah. So.
Emmanuel Nevedo says, "Okay, hit that like button, everybody." For some reason, everything's stalled out on my thing. It says we've been going 52 minutes. We've been going way longer than that. I think we've been going 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And so, hey, Emmanuel, thank you very much. Hit that like button, everybody. Chris says he loves number 5.
Yeah.
The practice.
Yeah, you have to.
Yeah. You could do the jigging thing off a pier, couldn't you? If you walked out on a pier or not?
It's not as a controlled environment because now you've got a lot of empty space between you and the water.
That's true.
Yeah, so that gets it gets a little tough. But bring it on whatever trip that you're on, and away you go. But don't stop learning.
Yeah, and that goes for life in general, right?
Yeah.
You have to have an open mind.
Yeah.
You and I talked about it upstairs a little bit. Sometimes you run into guys and they're like sponges, and I mean guys that have been doing this for years, and they're still open. And then you run into guys that say, I know more than you know.
Wow.
And those guys are it's going to be very difficult for them to learn something new, right?
Yep.
Yeah, you got to be open to it. That's for sure.
Yep.
Jose Ortega says, why are jigging rods short? I see a lot of 6-foot rods for using this technique. By the way, I have a question for you before you answer that.
Yes, sir.
Do you think I'm going to make it through the show without having to run to the restroom? Because, man, I drank about 6 cups of coffee up there. And what's your guess? I may leave you alone. Huh?
I think so. I think you'll be okay.
All right. So far, so good.
Yeah.
So far, yeah. Jose, why the short rods for jigging rods?
Because of the way that we are mechanically jigging these jigs, so lift up and the wind down. You go with something long, you actually have to lift up that much more because you're dealing with a lot more rod.
Yeah.
So you're not moving as much line with a longer rod. I know what I mean by that is that on a jigging rod, they're very parabolic in the way that they bend, and so when you have a 7-foot, you've got that much more material that's adding to the roundness of the rod, if you will.
Yeah.
So now at 7 feet in length, 8 feet in length, let's just say, to actually move the same amount of line, you've got a 6-footer. The rod loads up, the rod bends, yields to the weight of the jig, and then at some point it stops, and now you're getting a really good, efficient cadence out of it. You start going long, and now you have to lift up that much more just to get that jig to move in the fashion that you want to.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes
so now
sense.
it's not as efficient. It's not to say that you can't do it, but it's not as efficient. In fact, that's why some of the more popular jigging rods they're 5'6" and under. 5'2",
even
and
less,
things like that. Yeah, because if you're on a private boat, you'll notice the difference immediately from a 5'2" to a 6-footer. You can do that. You can get away with the short jigging rods out here. You just have to know your boat and know it well, and understand all the angles and your positioning and how to keep yourself out of trouble.
Yeah.
But that is why the rods are shorter. It doesn't mean that I know that there's a builder out there. He has like 7-footers. I have not fished one, so I can't make I can't make any comments on that. But yeah, we like them short because it maximizes our efficiency when it comes to the actual mechanical jigging motion.
Yeah, all right.
I've tried like the one that's at 6'8", and it was a bear to lift up that much of that rod, and it just bends, and to get the jig to dart up, you have to just lift a little bit more.
Yeah,
put more work into it.
Great question, Jose. And Jose says, "Thanks, Brian. I guess my Alua is out."
Yeah,
I think so, right? Ken Trenholm, another cheap trick to practice casting or dropping a knife jig. I'll go to a lake by me and rent a rowboat and practice away from everything after I do some bass fishing, of course. Hey, man, there's a guy who's dedicated to practicing, right? Yeah.
Yeah. Gotta do it.
I know my brother and I got to be really good fishermen when we were kids because we went all the time.
Mm-hmm.
We were always fishing.
Yeah.
And we were always competing with each other, and we were competing with everybody on the boat.
Yeah.
We used to have may have mentioned this to you, but if the boat had one fish per rod, we should have 3, or we had totally screwed up. So if 2 fish per rod, we don't have 6, then we're looking at each other like, what the heck, man? We screwed this up. And it was friendly pressure, but it made you want to be better.
Yeah.
And the only way you get better is by learning and listening to Frank Lopez. They yell at you.
Yeah, don't be closed-minded. I mean, little things here and there. I mean, I do I call it fly lining factuals. One of the workshops I do. It's not all these workshops. It's not expert. I'm not an expert. What I am is I'm a good student, and I love to share what it is that I have learned and what's been successful for me.
Obviously.
And even when it comes to the fly lining portion of it, we hear like wind in your face, you're in the right place. Wind to your back, you'll have nothing in your sack. I get it. But that actually needs a little bit more elaboration.
Yeah.
Right? Because if you say wind in your face, well, then that means that you're going to go on the either on the starboard or the port side of the boat and fire off. Well, if we're drifting, you've just cut in line, right?
Yes.
And now you've cut people off, and you become a liability to yourself and others, right? So when I talk about when I do that workshop, I actually have my wife draw a silhouette of a boat on a big pad on an easel.
Yeah. And
I talk about how the boats drift. And you'd be surprised. Some people that they've been fishing a lot longer than I've been alive.
Yeah.
And they go, we didn't realize how the boat drifts and why the lines tend to end up always on the bow. When the crew's telling you how is it the crew knows for us to step to the right?
Yeah.
Or step to the left?
Right.
Right. Well, they know because they understand. They know the way that the boat drifts, and they're understanding. They get it. There's my word, right? They get it.
Yes.
They understand what's going on. And so until you get there, you might sometimes I see people they're on a trip and they're constantly blaming others for getting into tangles. And I always sometimes say, hey, maybe the common denominator might be you.
Right.
Right. So if you are not, you're not open-minded and you're completely like you got tunnel vision and you don't believe that you use that, I know.
Yeah.
Then it becomes problematic.
Yep.
And just like I've watched guys, they'll pick a bait in the tank and they make a cast. They'll try casting like 4, 5, 6 times. I'm like, dude, I go one. You lucky. I give him a second shot. If he doesn't take off, coming off.
Yeah, right.
But it's going to happen. At some point after about the 8th cast, you kind of realize that it ain't happening with this one here.
Exactly.
Kind of switch and go at it. And if maybe you've gone through 4 or 5 and it's not doing it, you ever think about switching hook position?
Yeah.
That could be that could help too. So you go through all this. It's kind of like it's. One thing leads to another. There's peanut butter, then you go to jelly. You got ketchup, then you go to mustard. I mean, you just kind of keep on moving along. And at some point here, you will start to realize that, hey, this is actually work.
Yeah.
Fishing is a very proactive thing. We're not just waiting. Even, some species you can do that on, but you still have to set up the boat properly and things like that. But you do have to work at this. And
yes.
Even the act of fly lining, which is the basic foundation of what we do out here. Take a look why when we take women out fishing, why is it that why are they getting bit all the time? You ever think that maybe they don't put a lot of they don't prioritize the backlash because they don't really know, maybe if they're new, they don't know what a backlash is or what it could potentially do, and it's maybe all in the cast. So you notice they don't cast, they drop it right in front of them. But they're very gentle on their spool. They don't put their thumb and mash it down on the spool. In other words, to make that bait have to pull the line off of the spool. They're real gentle with it, and they allow the bait to swim as naturally and as freely as possible. Because if you think about it, we're trying to make that bait go from point A, which being the boat, to point, or where we cast it, to point B where that fish is, and still be lively at that point. Well, he's got a hook and he's dragging a bunch of line behind him. Yeah. So if you keep hammering down on on your thumb in fear of a backlash, then he's working extra hard. So now by the time, if he can even get to point B, right, you just have to figure this one out. And he's not going to be as lively. Well,
he's not going to look natural.
Yeah,
right? He's all pooped out.
Yeah, here comes a young lady who is being very gentle and maybe doesn't get it quite yet, but is doing some things that you probably could learn from.
Yeah.
Right. Not mashing down on the spool and letting it really have a good amount on, but still keeping in contact. Right. Their probably hands are more sensitive than ours that are rotting right before us. Right,
yeah. Right.
So all these, these little things here, it's going to get you to the stage where you get it, and that is the most important. And be a good time out on the water.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, Danny Kadota, he's been a captain. He's, I don't know how old he is, 70 or whatever. Oh, sorry, Danny.
No.
I watch him when he's on a boat. He is learning from everybody. He's not a know-it-all, even though he could be because he's done all this for so many years, but he's soaking it in. He's not getting bit. He's watching to see what's going on. That illustrates your point perfectly, that nobody is above learning and observing on a trip, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm constantly asking questions of the crew and trying to figure out different ways to attack things. There's 100 different ways to skin that cat, and there's always good, better, best. And you want to try. I'm always trying to learn. I'm always trying to figure stuff out. You know, I think one of the things I learned, I told last year when we did this, I said, yeah, the only things that I learned was just because the bait doesn't look right doesn't mean it's not going to get bit.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I still remember that trip, Tyler on the Cortez, he's like, here, this one. Or he was telling us, guys, they're all beat up. So it goes, don't try to sit here at the bait tank or trying to look for the one. It's going to be a long trip for you if you do that. So we started hooking the ones that were bleeding and missing scales. They swam.
Yeah.
The ones that we found that didn't have any missing scales or didn't have any blown up, they weren't going.
Right.
So there you go.
Yeah. It's funny. Things have changed nowadays because the way I learned to not cast a bait twice was probably 50-something years ago on the Redondo Special.
Yeah.
I went to cast a bait twice, and Joe Schilling was a captain in those days running the boat. And when I went to cast it, before I made my cast, I got hit over the head with a bait braille.
Yeah.
And he said, hey, Ken, you don't cast bait twice, which nowadays would be abusive and you'd be calling a lawyer. And
right.
But Joe, it was his way. I mean, look, I'm still talking about this 55 years later. Yeah. That was the impression that Joe made on me.
Correct.
And I hope Joe's doing well out there. I pray that he is, because he was a big part of my life. I fished commercially with him as a kid and decked for him on the Mascot 4. And man, there's so many great stories with Joe. But I mean, that's one way to learn also. But I don't think anymore nowadays, that's for sure. Ken Trenholm says, it can really help your balance being in a small boat casting. Definitely helps when you're on a charter boat. There you go. So he's talking about being in the small boat. Chris says, 19-pounder guy. He's talking about Danny Kadota, I think. That's right. Balboa Fish Group, thank you, Dr. Phil. Yes, my pleasure. Electrical continuity.
See if you look like him.
Oh, no. You know who I get all the time is Breaking Bad, is it? Yeah, Breaking Bad.
Oh, okay.
There's a bald-headed guy on there. I had like 2 people in the same day. I got it all the time in China. Yeah. They thought I was the guy, I'm like, oh, sure, I'll sign an autograph,
Yeah.
All right, Balboa Fish Group. Don't stroke the slim off the fish. The slime off the fish.
One. Yeah, going into the bait tank, you guys, you give it the death grip just to keep the sardine from jumping out of their hand.
I got a good one.
I learned, on my long range days to cover their eyes.
Yeah.
Right, and then get your hook in them, and away you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, you definitely, if you've got a handful of scales by the time once you put that bait on, you did something wrong.
Yeah.
So a lot of, like I said, there's so many little intricacies. I heard a line that I use to this very day. It says, "Perfection is all the little things done well."
Mm-hmm.
And in fishing, that's what it boils down to, right? The proper, maybe the right line size for the application, what's getting bit, what won't get bit, and then of course the right size hook, the right bait, casting technique, where to cast on the boat, understanding drift. Hey, the one trip we had the trip prior to this one, we were fishing on the anchor. There's something that hasn't been done in a while for tuna, and you're swinging back and forth, right? So now you have to it's still no angles, no tangles. Same thing, but just the dynamic changes now because you're not going to go all the way up to the bow.
Right.
You're constantly, it's like going back. All right, guys, back to the left. Here we go. And then here we
Exactly.
go, back to the right.
Exactly.
So all these little things, they come into play. Guys who like to fish lures and jig casting kind of have to, they do the same thing.
Jack wants to know if it matters if there's glow on your rockfish jigs. And hey, let's just mention bluefin in the same time. Do you like glow in the dark jigs? Think they're effective?
I will say that if you like them and it's been working for you, then by all means do it. I can tell you that I don't glow them. I don't bring a black light and shine it on. I don't hold it up. I don't do it. And a lot of my guys that come with me on my charters, they themselves don't do it either. So I personally don't find that, it's not I don't need it to say that this is going to be like the deal maker here,
Yeah.
So I don't glow them, but if it worked for you.
I was going to say, you said that, and I remember I was talking to a kid trainer at the gym the other day, and I'm going, hey, what do you think about the carnivore diet or the keto diet or the whatever? And he goes, does it work for you? And I go, yeah. And he goes, it's great, Dad.
Yeah.
And he goes, if being a vegetarian works for you, great.
Yeah.
And he was kind of right,
Yeah.
because, if I say, hey, you're stupid if you don't go on the carnivore diet, and the guy says to me, well, I don't like meat.
Yeah.
Well, you're a moron if you don't,
Yeah.
it's not going to last. You don't like meat. Yeah.
Yep.
So you got to use what you feel confident with and all of that.
Yep.
Care to make a comment about the state of sport fishing in 2023? Because I can remember when Joe Schilling hit me in the head with that scoop, there were some bleak fishing seasons in Redondo. There were some wide open ones, but there were some bleak ones where I said, by the time I'm an old man, nothing's going to be left. And as usual, I was completely wrong with my prediction.
Yeah.
I think fishing is as good now as I've ever seen it. What do you think?
Fishing is very good. One of the things that I have noticed is, the people, I don't like it when people feel bad that they don't want to go on a day and a half or a 2.5 or a 3-day trip. They want to catch a bluefin tuna.
Yeah.
Listen, there is no reason why if let's say work prevents you from going on a 3-day or something like that, don't feel bad because you decided to go on a full day on the San Diego, the Grande, or one of those boats down there. They target them, and listen, they do just fine.
They get them
on the bluefin.
Yes,
right.
Amazing.
And you know what? If you don't get them, you have rockfish or something else to fall back on. You had a great time, and because you didn't have to take all that time off of work or anything like that. So the point I'm trying to make is it's okay to go on a shorter trip, knowing that if you can accept the fact that there is a chance you won't get anything, then you'll be good.
Yeah.
Because we accept the same fact when we go on a 2.5 or a 3.5 day trip.
That's true.
Right? We just happen to have a couple more days to get a crack at them.
Yes.
But that's it.
Which is important. Because those poor guys on those full day boats, man, if they zig instead of zag, they can be in trouble. That is the hardest gig in town.
But if you can accept that,
yes,
go for it. Party on.
Yeah.
Those guys, the guys from West Coast Jiggers, they fish full days. They do it like early season.
Yeah.
And they've put together some incredible catches, and I mean like big ones.
Yeah.
Triple digit fish on full day trips.
That's awesome.
So don't feel bad because either resources are limited or time is limited. You have family constraints, things like that.
Go fishing.
Go fishing. It is good. I mean, waiting. It's always good to be on a trip where you were the one that started the bite. Your trip was like, it was tough, and then you go on one and bingo, you guys got them. To go when it's good, and then if you had that freedom, if you want to go when it's really good, you may not be able to get onto your favorite boat, right? So you have to live with that. If you're just watching the counts, you may not get onto your favorite boat. Not saying a good boat or a bad boat. I'm just saying your favorite boat.
Yes.
You won't get on.
Yeah.
Or then it's good. You decide now to go, and then you go on one of those days where that's it.
Yeah.
Right. So it's just go. all my trips, we leave Mondays and we come back Thursday. And I book my charters out a year in advance. I have no idea what's going to happen. I just go. And we have fun when we're out there, and we have no regrets. We leave it all out there. We work hard, we fish hard, and away we go. So the key here is to not only go, but you can only control what you can control.
That's right.
If you got your tackle prep completely dialed in, then if that moment comes, then you will be ready for it. So control what you can control, and don't stress out over the things that you can. I'm to a point now, I don't look at fish counts anymore. I don't care. I just look for good weather.
Yeah. And even that,
even that's been iffy.
I mean, some of these lousy weather days, like we had a trip on the Amigo where it was so screwed up, the weather, that I told my kids, there's no way we're going to catch. And we had wide open fishing.
Yeah.
Then this recent trip on the Independence, big boat, so we didn't have to worry too much. But it was snotty weather, and it looked like, man, just action.
Yeah.
Every day, the entire trip. It was really good. So like you say, you just got to go, right?
Yeah, just go. I mean, that's the most important thing. You can't catch them staying home. And we like to be on those trips where, like it's like, dang, it was crap for the last couple of days, and you guys got them.
Yeah, right.
But just go.
Absolutely. Right. Balboa Fish Group Deep Rockfish. I like the glow, and put on some squid or shrimp. Yeah, it works. If it works, and if it works for you, man.
If it works for you, then by all means, keep doing it.
Yep.
Yeah.
For sure. Chris says the Sea Watch was a good full day boat. He fishes full day. And I saw his scores, Chris. They were excellent. He had some good scores. He's
friend of mine runs that boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, drives it.
What's his name?
Ryan Myers.
Oh, nice. Mm-hmm. Ryan, shout out to you, man. I've been watching you all season long, watching all your outstanding catches.
Yeah.
Good job. Yeah, man, those guys. Oh, wow. I mean, to go that far and make a catch is, to me, a feat that is incredible.
No, I mean,
it's so hard.
The boats are having a hard time, even going right now.
Yeah,
right. I mean,
right.
We talked to Tony. He was saying, it's definitely slowed down.
Yeah.
Then the new Loen comes in yesterday, or was it yesterday?
See that?
And it's like, damn, what in the world?
Did you see that group photo?
What was it, like 34 over 100 or
something?
Looked
like a Clarion trip or something in the old days.
Yeah. So obviously that charter group, I think that's like that Get Bit charters, that Kale.
Yeah.
Obviously they're ready to go.
Yep. There was a guy on there. I don't know him personally. I don't think I do. Maybe I've met him. I'm not sure. Eric Lee.
Okay.
And Eric, good job. I put his photos on the morning briefing this morning, and Eric had 6 over 100 pounds.
There you go.
6 over 100 for one guy.
And it's November.
Yeah.
So I don't know, this bluefin fishery, or this fishery that we have, we're very fortunate. I mean, it's bluefin are biting, and the trips are going in April now.
I know.
Right? So it used to be boat work time, and now April is like, you're ready to go.
Yeah.
I'm going on a trip in April. I signed up for one.
Why not,
April.
right?
Yeah.
They're going to be biting. They're probably going to be biting in January.
Yeah, probably. So, just go.
We're sitting here, and the El Patron's on its way in with limits of bluefin. The Freedom's got a full load. They're heading out tonight. Incredible stuff. I'm telling you, it just is mind-boggling. Do you feel to you like we've been going for 2 hours?
I don't know.
Doesn't feel like it to me.
But,
we got a few more questions, and we may wrap this up. Who knows? Let's see. Jack says, if you add strips of squid on jigs and you only have top hooks, it will affect the jig action. True.
Yeah. I don't put the bait on because I just fish the jigs as they are. Really, because I don't want to stop and having pin baits on. I mean, I'm going to try to use the action of the jig to draw a bite. But hey, if you want to put a bait on the hooks, go for it.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Party on.
David Alcantar says, now he's getting to the good stuff here. I mean, I don't know why we skipped over this. One of the best boat burgers I've ever had was on the Sea Watch. I love it. Very good. Dave Clark says, Ryan on the Sea Watch is learning and becoming a fishy captain.
Mm-hmm.
He's your buddy, right?
I knew him when he was a kid.
How old is he now?
I don't know, but I
If you had
met
to
him
guess?
when he was a kid.
Like 14, 15?
Oh, like younger than that. I was
Wow.
working at Bob Sands Fishing Tackle in Van Nuys there, and he was a customer, or his dad used to bring him in all the time. He loved it, loved fishing so much. And, well, now he's making a career out of it.
Yeah, I know, man. I see guys that are getting ready to retire. Scott Mizell on the Condor, if he hasn't retired. I remember him on the Pegasus, a kid. He'd remember very well. Boingy, boingy. He used to say that when we get bit.
Yeah.
And, yeah, it's some fun stuff. Speaking of albacore, I'll tell you one funny story with Scott. I walked down there one time, and he goes, use the cranium hook. The cranium hook. And we were in an albacore stop, and they were just solid, wide open. Joe Chait was standing with a garden hose, spraying. The cranium hook must have been a 14-0. And you pin a little anchovy on it, hang it over the side, and albacore come up and bite it on 100-pound, and you're on. That's how insane that gets sometimes. Robert Graber says, thanks, Phil and Brian. Great info. Dave Clark says he's fished with Aliar in April the last 2 years and had good bluefin tuna trips. Aliar's another great captain on the players from. I don't know Aliar. I just know I follow him, and he's always doing really good. Chris says, Ryan is good. Thanks so much for this. You guys love jigging. You want to wrap it up, Brian?
Yeah.
Have you had enough of this?
You know what? I just appreciate the time that your viewers gave, and I know, many of them reach out to me on Instagram and on Facebook, and I'm very appreciative of that. And thank you for your friendship and your support, and thank you, Friedman Adventures family, for your friendship and support. I'm done for the season, so I'm on to my full-time job and family stuff, so probably won't.
You deserve it, Brian.
Yeah, won't be until next year, but
the 5 things you gave and imparted that wisdom to us all, they're fantastic.
Yeah, I hope that you guys. Well, you don't be just because I'm done this year doesn't mean you should be done this year. They're still biting and trips are still going. In fact, it probably would be good if people were going a lot more, because then they would have more coverage.
Yes.
The other day I was talking to Rambo, and he said there's only 3 boats out.
Yeah.
Right, and that's not enough coverage. And that stuff scatters, and
makes
you
it
kind
tough.
of figure that one out. But guys, it's still biting. And look, I mean, again, that new Lohan, like,
oh my God, yeah.
Like, really?
Yeah.
Like, wow, here I am, stupid me. I probably shouldn't have told my wife that this last trip was the last one of the season. I'm trying to renegotiate those terms, but so far unsuccessfully.
I got to come over and do hot pot with you guys and see how that works out. Let's see, a couple more great info as always. Thanks, Guy. Michael Lee. Thank you, Michael. Linkide coming into play soon. Happy jigging, Jonathan Jones. Thanks for joining us. Eric Sheets, Aliar, the Bluefin Whisperer. Eric, got to get you and your dad down here for sure. Emmanuel, thanks, guys, for all the knowledge.
The Eric thing, though, he talked about
the fires.
Yeah.
I'm in.
I mean, come on, Eric.
Yeah, I'm in.
Yeah, shoot us a text message or group message and let us know what day you want to do that. I don't know how much conversation we'll end up having about fishing, but I'm sure it'll be fun.
It'll be fun, man. It'll be good. He's leaving on a 10-day trip with Aliar day after Thanksgiving. Brian, if all of these folks out here want to get in touch with you with regard to Medicare or fishing, or what's the best way for people to do that?
2 ways. The best 2 ways. Number one is go onto my website, www.mhlis.com. There's a big banner up there that says Ask Me About Medicare. I'm going to change that and say Ask Me About Medicare or fishing. Click on that and you can send me an email. Or you can find me on Instagram. I'm at The Cigar Aficionado. AFISHINADO.
All right. Man, what a great seminar. I learned so much. I love the whole thing about the circle hook and not jamming into strike right away, but everything. It was just so illuminating, and I learned a lot. And I've been in this game for a few years, so when I learn something, I deeply appreciate it.
It's always a good time, Phil. Thank you.
Good to see you.
Take care.
I'm going to run over there and hit the button. And you know what else I'm grateful for?
What's that?
I think I'm going to make the restroom here.
There you go.
Barely.
Good night, guys.